Hello guys, welcome to this webinar organized by GyanDhan. Today the focus is going to be GRE, specifically in the post-pandemic world. There are a bunch of questions we've had from students over the months, and we felt that it's better to get an expert to share their opinions in terms of what's GRE and how it's going to change, or how should it be viewed in the current environment. Before I get started, I'll just give a quick intro about us and about myself. So I'm one of the co-founders at GyanDhan. GyanDhan is an education financing marketplace. What we do is we help students get education loans from the leading financial players in the market. At this point in time, we have partnered with over 10 lending partners, and since inception, we have helped students get over 3,500 crores in loans. This translates to over 10,000 students have benefited from the GyanDhan platform in one way or the other. Our mission at GyanDhan really is to help a student find the best possible loan based on their own profile. So it doesn't really matter whether you get a loan from GyanDhan, NBFC, or from a particular bank. We are really here to identify what's fit for you and help you get that. How do we help in this process? Really think of it as we are your go-to guide in terms of getting the loan done. From which lender to apply to what documents do you need, even getting the documents and helping you with the doorstep pick, and finally troubleshooting any issues that you face when you are applying for a loan. In case you want to use any of our services, you can reach out to us on our website or reach out to us on email at contact@gyandhan.com. We are also available on the social platform and would love to engage with you guys. So with a quick introduction out of the way, really get and dive deep into the topic of the session today, really around GRE pandemic world. There have been many questions around what's the use of GRE when universities are waiving off GRE. Should it really matter at all even now? How should you go about preparing for that? Yada, yada, yada. So what we think is we have with us Tanya. Tanya Bajaj is the Clients Relation Director for GRE at TS India. So for me, the idea was rather than us giving any you directly hear from them who have experience in this field. So with that, I'll kind of hand over the mic to Tanya. Just give a quick intro about yourself. That will be great.
Sure, thank you so much for firstly this session here. As you already mentioned, I'm the Client Relation Director for the GRE program here in India. As a part of the work that we're doing here with ETS, it's our role and it's our duty to basically ensure that we help students with all the information and resources they need so that they can put their best foot forward, and we would like to assist them with their education journeys going forward. In my experience in the past, actually 14 years now, I have worked with higher education assessment organizations for all this time. Previously worked with ACT, both again being assessed in the assessment domain only, and I've worked with executing a comprehensive growth strategy, assisting several students in their academic journeys. So with that, I think we can dive right in. I have a quick deck that we have prepared to give students an understanding of a little bit about ETS India as well as the GRE program.
Sure.
Do you want to start with the set of Q&A?
No, so Tanya, you can just start with a quick intro about ETS. You can share your slides, and then we can get into the question answers. And in the meantime, while Tanya loads the questionnaire or slides, I'll just give a quick update. If you haven't, we are also live on YouTube live. So if you have any questions, feel free to post those questions on YouTube live. We'll be collating these questions and we'll be answering those at a later time. And the meeting invite and the webinar invite, we had also talked about goodies and kind of discounts for students. So how will those vouchers will be given out? So just it is purely dependent on the question and answers. So the most interesting questions will be the ones that will be getting those vouchers, and so we encourage folks to ask the relevant questions that might help them and help others in this journey. So with that, over to you.
Sure, of course. Just to quickly get started, I'll give you a brief understanding of ETS, the company. Basically, we are a not-for-profit organization, and we operate out of New Jersey in Princeton. As ETS is in the test making industry for over 75 years, we have the highest amount of experience and in education research and assessment. Overall, we do develop, administer, and score over 50 million tests annually, and we are present in 180 countries at over 9,000 locations. Only in India, there are the two tests that are mainly popular, which is the TOEFL and the GRE. Otherwise, we administer and score and develop over 30 assessments, which are used worldwide. It's our mission to be able to help equity and quality in education, to help everybody gain that access and improve their lives with education going forward. In this little deck today, I would like to give you a quick overview of the GRE general test. What are the quick steps? What are the quick things that you need to expect on test day? I will not get too much into tips and strategies because I'll be very brief about that. And I will also help you with some resources that will help you prepare and stand out. To start with giving you a quick overview of the GRE general test, in simple words, the GRE test is used across the world for several programs. Most popularly, it's used for master's programs, whether you're currently doing your engineering or whether you're currently doing your graduation. You may be in a position in your life where you're not truly decided as to which way you want to go. Do you want to continue your studies or take a break? If you do want to continue, do you want to do a master's program? Do you want to move on to take up something in law? Do you want to take up an MBA? Do you want to take up doctoral programs? So if you have not been fully decided about what you want to go, and that's perfectly fine, because the GRE test is accepted across the range of all of these programs. Another great benefit about the GRE test is that it's valid for 5 years, which means it's perfectly all right if you're undecided about the next steps that you want to take. So for you can absolutely take the GRE while you're in your academic mindset, and that is what we usually recommend to students as well, because to finish your studies, get into the workforce, and then later on decide to take a test, that transition can become a little bit of a challenge. So we usually recommend students to take the test during the time of when they're already doing their graduation. Typically, we see students take the GRE test maybe around their third and fourth year of engineering or of whatever courses that they're taking. In simple words, to give you an understanding of why the GRE score comes with a lot of benefits for students, is that the GRE test is firstly trusted by a lot of business schools worldwide. At this point in time, although on the deck it's mentioned 1,300 business schools, but there are almost touching 1,400 business schools at this time who accept the GRE for their MBA programs. Among the top universities, we do have Howard Business School and several others, Yale, Stanford, Wharton. All of these schools readily accept the GRE scores. Also, if you are in a position where you're not truly decided whether or not you want to even go abroad, you can still take the GRE general test. The reason being because we have over 98, almost 100, touching almost 100 programs in India as well, accepting the GRE scores. All of the IIMs, IIM Bangalore, Lucknow, Kozhikode, several others, ISB, SPGen, BITS School of Management, Plaksha University, CREA, several others are also now accepting the GRE scores for their own admission processes. This comes as a benefit for you students, for you to understand if you are in India and you want to study in India. Say, for example, there is the CAT, the MAT, all of these exams that are conducted only once in a year, and that kind of seals your fate. That score seals your fate in a sense. But with the GRE, because we are so flexible in terms of our test delivery, we deliver the test over 50 times in a year. So you may be in a position to take the test sooner, and if you're not happy with your scores, you have the option to retest as well and improve your scores, and also submit your improved scores into the universities to gain that right admission that will absolutely change your life as you go. That said, GRE is now also accepted under law in many law schools as well, but this is predominantly in the US market. We are looking to figure out how we can maybe develop. We can have the GRE scores accepted for law programs in India as well. But that is, at this point, that is a bit of a far-fetched plan. But if you're in a position where you want to study law, even in the US, you can still take the GRE general test and get your admissions in law schools abroad as well. That said, another important feature that we would like to mention is that the GRE test is now available at home. We did make this swift move digitally into a digital delivery format during the time of COVID. And we also have now come to offer students the flexibility and the convenience of taking the GRE test from home. The benefit about it is that it's identical in content, it's identical in on-screen experience. There is nothing that has changed on the test except for the fact that you need not get into a test center and you can always take the test from home. The test fee is the same, the payment options are the same, the score scales are the same, literally everything is same except for the fact that you will take the test on your own computers from your own homes. In order to maintain test security and integrity, we do have live human proctors as well as some very strong AI technologies through ProctorU, with which we can ensure that the students are constantly invigilated and there is no scope for. And we also discourage a lot of students to use any unfair practices and means to circumvent our systems. This is something that we're improving upon every single day, and we almost always will discourage students to use any unfair practices to gain scores, because eventually that leads to score cancellations as well as admission withdrawals for a lot of students. Moving forward, I'll quickly breeze through the format as well. This is easily available even online. The test is the test is a little difficult, I won't lie about that. And it's divided into 3 sections. The first one being the AW, analytical writing. The second being verbal reasoning. And the third being quantitative reasoning. I need not get into the details here because of the lack of time. But as a student, these are the 3 sections which universities will look at to understand your level of skill, to understand whether or not you are in a position to take on the academic rigor of the new courses that you're applying at these universities. So basically, the insights that the GRE test provides to admission officers is very critical, and it has that extra weightage that will help you, increase the value of your application in the eyes of the admission officers. The GRE test is also made in a very test-taker friendly design, where we offer you a lot of flexibility in terms of marking questions that are very difficult. You can review some questions, you can review the questions later. For example, you're in a place where you're getting too worked up, or some questions too difficult in front of you. You can mark it, move on to the next question, and come back by pressing review to figure out where you stand, what are the questions you've marked, what are the questions you've left behind, and come back and reattempt them without wasting time on one particular question. I think that's a general understanding of the GRE test. In terms of the scores, as I said, basically this is a test of skill to understand your level of skills. So the scores range from 130 to 170 in 1 point increments. Basically, every correct answer will give you 1 point, and then these raw scores are converted to scale scores, which is why your score will always range between a 130 and a 170. The analytical writing score is always from 0 to 6, basically with 1 point increment, with half point increment per correct answers. So all in all, in the way the scores will come out will be in 3 separate sections. Sometimes universities will combine the scores and make it look like it's a 340. So you'll eventually end up gaining your scores out of 340. In terms of registrations, whether it's at home or at a test center, again, it's a fairly simple process. All you do is to go onto the website, which is www.ets.org/mygre, and you can create a file and register yourselves. Everything else on the platform is fairly simple for you to navigate. You will log in, you will register, you will find a test center or choose to test at home. Select your date and your location. Fill in your details in terms of your Aadhaar card or your passport, whatever is easily available for you. Put that in and you can register yourself and at the particular slot where you're most comfortable on giving the test. I think with that, I come to general tips and strategies, which is, we almost always will tell students to prepare a little bit in advance. Do not wait for the last minute. You can always buy official guides and official, one moment. I'm not getting into all of these details because I understand there is because of the paucity of time. But we have a lot of test prep resources that are available here as well, like the Power Prep Plus online, which is basically a 3 practice tests that are available that'll give you a decent understanding and a practice on what the GRE test is all about. There are official guides that are available. We also have launched a new platform called GRE Mentor, which gives you an access, which is a self-paced learning platform, which gives you about 650 new questions online to help you do better on the GRE general test. That said, I come to the end of this deck, which gives you a decent understanding of what the GRE is, and I will now pass it on to you, Ankit, in case you want to lead the talk from here on.
Thanks for that, Tanya. Um, I'll just share my screen now, and we had prepared a list of 5 frequently asked questions, if I may call that, and we'll ask you those questions and have your opinion on those. And then I've been collecting questions that have been posted on the YouTube live, and we'll go through those as well. The time required. The first question is, yeah. So the first question is, why should you carry after test waivers given?
Sure, that's a very interesting question. We get this a lot nowadays. I'll be absolutely candid here. There are several universities who are waiving off having entrance exams. Now, this has been the case. This was based very rampant around the time when COVID had hit. And I think as a general service we students is to reduce the number of barriers that come in the way of their academic journeys, which is why universities back then, there was a lot of political agendas as well, because of which the test waiver movement had began, and it had caused a lot of chaos during the COVID days. I absolutely agree with that part. The reason why you still want to give a GRE test is because you want to. I'll give you a couple of reasons, and you can figure out whichever one works best for you. You want to present yourself at an equal footing when other applicants are submitting their scores. GRE test is one of the most popular exams, and it gives university officials and admission officers a very clear benchmark which they can compare students who apply to them worldwide. Now, imagine a student coming in from Korea, one student's coming in from China, one's coming in from Malaysia, one's coming in from India. All of these countries have their own boards, they have their own systems of assessments. But for an American or for an admission officer sitting in the US, how would he be able to compare the quality of these students? Which is why the standardized tests were even put in place. So in that sense, although graduate programs have a test optional policy, but it would still make, and it's not like as though you'll put in a GRE test and you'll have an admission officer ignoring your test records. That's not going to happen. It's always better to be able to provide for more information, increasing the quality of your application, and then letting the officials decide whether or not they want to consider your scores. As I said, another reason to give the GRE general test is because it provides a valuable resource of information about your cognitive skills. As graduate programs these days are making admission decisions, they typically consider many factors of including your academic background and readiness, your personal attributes, whether or not you demonstrate perseverance, responsibility, and collaboration skills, along with career goals and interests. To review all these pieces of collaboration in the application portfolio, they want to be able to learn as much as possible about you and gain that evidence through different sources to understand whether or not you're a fit in the program. So that's another aspect you want to consider. Third thing is, for example, you're at a place where your GPAs are not as high. And if you study hard and do well on the GRE general test, it gives you that extra weight that, all right, I did not do the greatest in my GPAs, but my GRE scores are perfectly good, which gives decent amount of insights to students to understand, decent amount of insights to the admission officer that this student has the caliber and they will succeed in the first year of studies of their existing or the new courses that they're taking. So these are some of the reasons that we usually tell students, and by all means, I still encourage you to go ahead and take the GRE general test because it can
Perfect. I'll tag along a couple of other questions that I've seen YouTube Live. So I think you pretty much answered the question in terms of, hey, if the university says, is it optional? Should I even still spend $27 to send the GRE score? I think that you probably pretty much summarized by saying that, hey, it's another data point and it helps them make a better decision. But I think there's this question by Jahnavi Obhan, and the reason I'm just quoting this question is because at some point in time, certain scores might be good, certain scores might be bad, and then there's always this question of why should I even share a bad score, right? So I think I'm not saying that this is a good score or a bad score, but because this is a very specific question, so I just wanted to piggyback on this and then have that question again reframed for you. So Jahnavi asks, for a score of 325, is it worthwhile to spend $27 to send GRE scores to universities which have considered it as optional? And the reason why I'm asking that is specifically because it's a specific score. So again, going back to that question of, hey, I mean, is it really something I should just hold back? And then if yes, what is the magic number? Is there a magic number, or should I do some research and figure out what magic number is for different universities?
This is actually a bit of a no-brainer, but thank you still for asking this question. Ankit, to answer your question, John, we see a 325 out of a 340, quite honestly, is an absolutely fantastic score. You can actually apply into the Whartons and the Yales and the Stanfords of the world, and they will give you a red carpet entry with that score, if your other points of your application are strong enough.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. But if supposing you're in a position where your score is not as good, then I would simply recommend you always take the test once. I had mentioned in my deck that you have flexibility to let you test more than once. You can submit your better score when you do take the test again. Now, one point I want to clearly mention here is sometimes students will have some inflated scores because of at-home testing. Now, that's another point that you want to steer clear from, because if in case, it comes through the radar and if at any cost, I'm not saying everybody does it, but if at any cost, any unfair means have been detected, it will result in cancellation of your scores. It will result in blacklisting you as well as qualifying for the admission. So you may want to be very, very mindful of that your scores are absolutely genuine. And another point is, if your scores don't match with your application, or if there's a wide disparity in your application as well as your scores, that too will raise questions in the eyes of admission officers, and then that might cause you another set of issues. So you want to be completely clear when you submit your scores so that your admission process is smoother going forward. My recommendation is that you put the hard work in today and reap the benefits while you're there, rather than move ahead and then suffer the consequences and you take many steps back unnecessarily. So that's something you want to be very, very careful about going forward.
Yeah, that's a very important point, because there have been cases more recently and in the past in different other places as well, where if you forged information, doesn't matter whether you're in the second year or whatever, or even if you graduated, that becomes a blot on your resume, and then that can persist with you for quite a lot and can set you back really far. So you should be careful about that.
You want to be careful. Absolutely. Yes, thank you. I hope that answers your question, John.
Yeah. So moving on, the second question is, what are the latest GRE trends amongst study abroad aspirants? I'll just pose this question to you, and then there are a couple of questions I've seen in YouTube which are more specific. I'll just plug them in. But in general, if you can just share a quick overview in terms.
Sure. So I think from the trends that we're seeing in terms of outbound students from India, this looks like an all-time high. After the end of COVID, we are anticipating more and more students. I think almost 1.8 million students this year look like they will be traveling abroad. I'm not sure how many I think 30% or so will be traveling to the US, as per some report that I saw, and the rest will be traveling across other countries as well. It looks like this is going to be a promising year for students, at least for the ones who may have paused their academic journeys abroad and they want to pursue it this year onwards. Along with, in terms of the GRE test takers, yes, there is we are seeing a high number of students who are taking the GRE test as well to pursue their academic things.
I think one question I have, and we have a couple of questions for home-based test versus non-home-based test, but I'll just ask it here itself, is do the universities know if the particular GRE test has been taken at a center or it was taken at home?
At home, yes, universities, although from the universities will find out whether the test is taken at home or not. Say, for example, there is a student who's, there is some kind of disparity in their application. Any university can write into the ETS to check in the integrity of that score. So that's never going to be a problem. If that happens, it takes a matter of just a few days for a university to understand whether a test is taken at home, whether it's at a test center, whether it's a genuine score or not. Either way, it's very easily detectable for universities.
Sure. Another latest GRE trend, and this is the question I'm seeing more on the other end, when I'm seeing a bunch of questions on YouTube Live where the students are saying, has ETS increased the difficulty of quant or difficulty of the GRE test? So any comments on that front?
Yes, absolutely. The answer is actually no, because the GRE is known to be a standardized test. By standardized test, it means that the level of difficulty across all GRE tests, we call test papers as test forms. So the level of difficulty across test forms remains the same. That's why it's called a standardized test, because, as you know, we are comparing students from international backgrounds. So, the level of mathematics could be different from one country to another. Level of English could be different in one country or another. So the goal is to ensure that we bring all the students on one straight platform to understand where their true capabilities lie. So the GRE general test, I can safely say that no, there is no change in difficulty. What you might want to do is just practice a little more, understand how the questions are designed. There are several instructions and task directions that are shared over through a lot of resources that we already have distributed in the market. All you'll have to do is maybe take some coaching, maybe buy some resources to understand the pattern of the test questions, so that you are in a better position to answer them.
So I hope that answers the question asked by 2 or 3 folks. And Hiral has also asked a similar question saying, I've heard the difficulty of questions has increased, but the official guide still has the older, simpler questions. Is it true? I think I'll just say, Hiral, if the older guide has simpler questions, and if according to what Tanya is saying, difficulty has not changed, then you might be in for a higher GRE score. That's all I can say. Don't listen to what others are saying. Maybe you'll get a higher score.
True, absolutely. And again, if you feel that the official guide score, the questions are a little old and you've done them before, you can always look at purchasing the ETS GRE Mentor, which I just mentioned. It's a new self-paced online platform that we've put up on the web. That's available on website. It's $100 subscription for 1 year, which gives you access to over 650 questions ranging from all sections, whether it's AW, verbal, or even quant. So by all means, go ahead and explore that. There is a practice test available that's in the GRE Mentor free of cost as well. I think with that much ammunition on your side, you will be able to do better on the GRE general test on your own.
Perfect. Moving on to the third question. So the question is really, how is ETS planning to increase GRE acceptance? So essentially, yeah.
All right, sure. That's again a very easy question. We've just recently launched and formed the ETS subsidiary here in India as well. And as you know, ETS is available worldwide. We have hundreds of employees that are sitting out of really all the countries, from the EMEA region in the South Asia region, where ETS India, where I'm working in. So in terms of having the score accepted, we have teams that are deployed all over, where we look at engaging with universities and ensure that they too see value in accepting the GRE scores for their own admissions. Because as you know, the GRE offers a very high level of insight into a student's capabilities. So as I had again mentioned the deck previously, that we were at about 1,300 business schools accepting the GRE test as of just recently, and we've taken that up by another 100. I did not just update that deck. So we are sitting at 400 business schools accepting the GRE for MBA programs only. But there are several other thousands of programs where the GRE is anyways accepted. And we will be continuing this endeavor going forward.
Perfect. I'll take a couple of other questions because both Chaitanya and Taish both have the similar question. The question really is, GRE test registration has a limitation on the length of the first name, and then Taish says, hey, my passport doesn't have a surname, but last name is mandatory in ETS. So similar questions, what to do?
Yes, I think this is something we receive very often, but from the program side, in order to mitigate this problem, what we usually will tell students is write your first name again in the last name field. So if your name is say Srinivas,
Ankit.
for example, Ankit, or if your name is Ankit and you don't have a Mehra in the back, or you don't have it on your passport, then you will write Ankit in your first name field, you'll write Ankit again in your last name field and leave it at that. It is then the customer service representative who is in the system, they will understand and then they will change it up and keep it as Ankit only. That's not a problem.
Perfect. And what about Chaitanya's point where he said that the test registration has a limit on the length of the first name?
What do you mean? What do you?
So my guess is if my first, I haven't done the test registration, so I'm not sure. But my guess is really this question is seems like the first name might have a limit of 10 characters or 20 characters, and the first name is actually much longer than that.
Okay, this is new to me also.
Okay. I don't know if that is the case on the YouTube live, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer.
Sure.
Usually,
sure. So,
10 characters or 50 characters.
Sure. So, Chandra, if my interpretation of your question was right, you can just send us a mail and we'll forward it to the team, and then they can look it up.
I'll probably check in as well, and if you can put that in, I'll find out the answer.
Yeah. So once we receive the mail, we'll just forward it to your team accordingly. So moving on, essentially you've already covered this. So I'll combine the next two questions together. But the next question was GRE at home test. How does that work? And the follow-up question there was also around what should one prefer between at home and in-center test. So I'll just combine these two and then I'll add on the questions asked in the YouTube live.
All right, sure. So again, I think I mentioned this briefly in the deck as well, that the GRE test, as I said, it was like a swift move during COVID to assist students, and have them smoothen out their academic journeys. That's when we had launched the at-home GRE general test. Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, that there is no real difference in the quality of the tests. Only the conduction has changed. The delivery also has changed, other than instead of having it at a test center, students are now able to take it at home. That's the only difference. Yep. There is no changes made in the test in terms of the on-screen experience, the payment, the difficulty levels. Nothing has changed on the tests in a sense. So, but at an at-home, there is a separate procedure that is followed. So the student who is applied to take it from home, they'll have to, close themselves up in a room. They'll need to have a phone as a backup for internet services. They'll need to have a mirror to, give the proctor a 360 view of, the room where they're sitting, so that there's no scope of cheating. So there are small such, procedures that are put in order. And also, along with there is this AI software called Proctor U, through which they have these software that will help maintain the sanctity of the test. So that's some areas we put in order. In terms of giving you the a scratch paper, you can have like a whiteboard or a OPR, or a transparent sheet on which you can make your calculation, which you'll have to show to the proctor and erase it later on. Smaller differences are all that, and all of this I don't have to say to you. All of this will be available to you when you register for the test. All these communications will come to you anyway. At a test center, it's obviously a little more different. You'll have to go to the test center about half an hour in advance with your Aadhaar card or your passport copy to verify your identity. Mm-hmm. And then the simple procedures of basic checks and all of that, and then you can enter the test center and give the test. In terms of speaking about the preference, I would strongly recommend students to now take the test at a test center, because COVID is no longer in the picture. We are actively out of COVID, and it's better to give it at a test center going forward, because now we are seeing sometimes even universities are expecting students to give it they're accepting test scores if the student has taken it at a test center. So by all means, you can, if you know this, you want to preempt it and ensure that your scores don't become an issue even later. So you can give it. I would recommend you should give it more at the test center over at home.
Yeah, if you taking it at a center, it just reduces the possibility of questions being raised at any point in time.
So genuine feedback, go ahead and take it at a test center.
Perfect. I'll take one question from the meeting itself, which says, and that's a very typical question for most Indian students. What can be a possible approach towards GRE verbal? All the new words, new forms is sure daunting. So the question
Again,
is,
I didn't get that.
what can be a possible approach towards GRE verbal? All the new words, new forms is sure daunting. So I know that this is not the objective here, but yeah, and that would be a question that might be on many people's heads. So I thought might as well have your inputs there.
Well, my answer is going to be very, very simple. Just practice. All you need to do is just take a couple of months off. I mean, take a couple of months to practice on the GI test. It's verbal after all. We're all studying in English medium schools these days. So there's no real, I don't see it much to be a problem. But with a lot of practice, and as I said, we are here to offer a lot of resources and practice tests too. And along with that, there are also many, many coaching centers that are available in the market who will offer you all that assistance that you need. Along with that, I think it's also important to mention that we from ETS as well, we conduct a lot of master classes. Basically, they are not really how to teach you verbal, but more how to approach the GRE test and attack it in the right manner so that you are able to do better on the test. You can sign up for these master classes. They happen really every month. All you need to do is just look out for them. In case you need that, if I can have your email ID, I'll have them added into the database, and you will be able to receive communications around when we are conducting such master classes for you to attend. Happy to do that.
Perfect. I have a question from Minakshi. She says, "Hey, I'll be giving GRE in November. Is ETS study material sufficient to score a decent score of 320 plus?" So that would be the first question. I'll actually tag along another question from Pravalika, who says, "Took a couple of practice tests and some were pretty good, some are not so good. Would it be recommended to take tests now or practice for more time?" So I'm just trying to combine both those questions into one to just get a sense of, hey, what really is the ideal time to prepare, and then is the study material sufficient if I'm trying to target a decent score?
See, I mean, from our side, I think we have enough material that is available online. But again, it depends on the student if they really, need that extra help over and above what is provided for. What I do know is that there are several coaching centers who offer authentic, good training as well. So in case you feel the need, it's your choice, quite honestly, Pravalika. If you're in a place where you feel you need more support, you can absolutely go ahead and take something outside. Else, you may also look at the GRE mentor I just mentioned. It gives you a new set of questions officially approved by the ETS, by ETS India. Sorry, by ETS altogether. You have 600 questions or more, I think, is enough for you to crack the GRE test, in my opinion. Along with that, there are several practice tests too. We've just put in another practice test in the GRE mentor, so that gives you an additional option. Else, there are also discounts that are provided. There is practice tests available on the website. In my opinion, that's really quite
Perfect. So I've seen this question now come up 2 or 3 times. So I'll just ask this question. It has been asked in multiple formats, but the question really is, will the home-based test be discontinued in the post-COVID world?
That's a very good question. And the answer is I do not know. Right now, I do not know. But again, it's not something I can answer. It's a strategy decision from the program side. So as and when something happens, it'll be all clearly communicated on our websites and channels. So I don't know. Right now, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't ask it the first time around, but then I saw multiple times. I was like, okay, this definitely needs to be asked. All right. So another question is really, so another interesting question, putting you on the spot. Do you think third-party mocks are as reliable as the ETS power preps?
Third-party mocks. I think, the intent of all these exams is just to ensure your own capabilities. But for me, I'm not in a place to really endorse a third-party mock. By all means, I would still say go ahead and take the mocks that ETS has provided, really. But just for the sake of practice, there's no harm in experimenting either, right?
Is it too late for taking the GRE test if someone is applying for the fall 23 season?
Again, it depends on. I mean, I don't think you're late right now because at the end of the day, you also want to check into where your university cutoffs, university deadlines are, and you want to work backwards, and you also want to ensure that you receive your scores well in advance. so that it kind of adds up with the application and reaches the university in time. So that backward calculation needs to be done by you.
There are a couple of questions around. I'll just read.
One point
Sorry.
I'll add here is, for example, you take the GRE general test, it'll take about 10 to 15 days for the scores to reach you. So those 15 days are totally cut off. And you want to ensure that you don't cross the deadline that's been offered from the university as well. So say, for example, your deadline for fall is somewhere in Feb. You want to be able to have your scores in your hand at least by end of Jan. So that gives you that 1 month to ensure that you put your paperwork in order and have it sent out well in time. That's how you want to calculate it.
And is that 15 days kind of the number for all additional test reports as well? Because Rishabh has asked a question. I want to submit an additional test report other than the 4 free ones on the test day. How long will that take to reach the university?
The score report sending is not the issue. The actual score, for you to receive the score, is what it takes 15 days. Once your final score is received by you, it gets sent out to the university at the same time.
Okay. So if I've already had the score, I can just apply and say I need to send it to ABC University and get sent. Then we don't encounter that 15-day thing.
No.
Fair enough. All right. Let me just see. I'll not again put you on the spot in terms of which online platform gives the most relevant GRE mock experience. So one question has been asked on the meetup link as well as on YouTube is, does GRE offer any waivers in India just like in the US, and what's the process? So one obviously is asking questions here, and you might get some kind of waivers. But outside of that, I think the question is more generic in terms of is there a way to get waivers?
At this point in time, we don't have a waivers put in order for the Indian region. I do know that there are waivers, available in the US, but for India, we don't have it yet. It's still in the pipeline where we proposed it to maybe assist students who are maybe under-resourced but meritorious at this time, and if we can offer them a waiver, but nothing of that is in practice at this point. If it ever comes through in the future, then we'll absolutely put that in our websites in the FAQs as well, and you can keep an eye out for it. But right now, we don't have that facility yet.
Okay. Another question that has been asked in different formats is, does the extra 5th section marks, do those count in the final exam score?
Okay. So again, interesting. What we do is, because we have such stringent quality of testing, there is an option where we'll plug in an unscored section or a research section in the test form. So, and it will clearly be mentioned. If it's an unscored section, it means that whatever attempt that we will make, it will not count towards your score. That's one. Secondly, if it's a research question, which means that we're putting that question in your question paper to see how hundreds and thousands of students are reacting or approaching that question, to understand the level of difficulty. If it's too difficult, many will get it wrong. If it's too easy, many will get it right. So that gives us an understanding of whether or not we should include that question in the next set of question papers that we will design. That's the whole purpose of putting it as a research section. Now, that usually does not count towards the score, and it's mentioned on the paper as well that this is a research question and this is an unscored question. But it should not really matter to you, because it will not anyways count towards your score. And if it's a research one also, it's clearly going to be mentioned there. So for you want to attempt the test paper regardless to the best of your ability. Don't be too bothered if it goes into your score. You want to just attempt the test and really move along to the next set of questions.
Right. Now, given the fact that we can take the test multiple times, there are a couple of questions on those lines. One is really around, hey, will the university have access to my historical test scores? And the other question is, hey, can I combine my GRE scores? So I take verbal from one test and I take quad from the other test, combine them, and kind of then present my candidates.
Very interesting and creative of you to think like that. But then I'll try to I'll answer the first question, where if you take the test more than once, whether does the university know if you've taken it more than once? So basically, this is the freedom that is given to the student. If you've taken the test more than once, and say you have 2 or 3 scores, you have 2 or 3 scores, it will depend on you. Which of one of the scores you want to send, or you want to send all of your scores, or one of your scores, or any of your scores. If you are submitting your score on the test day, you will have the freedom to choose and send all of your scores or your last score. If you choose to submit your scores or send out score reports after test day, that's when you'll be able to. You'll have 3 options on that day. Any scores you can send, the highest score you can send, or none of your scores you can send. So you'll have all 3 options after test day. And universities do not come. As in which score you're sending. It's up to you. It's that flexibility entirely is with the student.
And mix and match?
Yeah, that happens on TOEFL. I think you're confusing it with the GRE. It's in TOEFL where you can take a speaking score and attach it to your... that combination happens on TOEFL, but it's given data.
Okay. And your typical question, essentially, what score is a decent score? And for AWA or for the other 2 sections? And I think the simple answer there is obviously. So what is a decent score on AWA, and then what is a decent score for quants and verbal sections?
All right. So again, very simple question, but again, thanks for asking. When it comes, as I said, these are all 3 different skills. So your skills, whether your verbal skill is going to be separately looked at, your AW is going to be separately looked at, and your quant is separately looked at. So in terms of combining the scores, as a test maker, we do not recommend universities to combine the scores. But some universities still do it, maybe because of ease or because of just convenience in general. AW scores are very important, mainly because what happens is when a university signs up to accept the GRE scores, the university can see your analytical writing essays. They have the viewing of that essay. So it gives the university that understanding of what your true articulation skills are like. So actually, AW scores are considered quite important because they do have a huge part in your application decision, your admission decisions. So many students I know will ignore the AW, which is actually a huge mistake. All sections are equally important, so you should not ignore one over another.
Yeah, I'll also add there, because this is some place where we had looked at historical data. I think there are a couple of other places as well where you can see some average scores and stuff like that. We had looked at admission probability based on your GRE scores and stuff. So at least empirically, what we know is there are, so all, as you mentioned, all 3 will be relevant. The question will really be, hey, some universities might have different cutoff for certain things.
Yes.
And in certain universities, it might be a case of, hey, the moment you score X on the verbal section, you are a pass.
Yes.
Anything beyond that doesn't make much of a difference. But on quant, it's still a gradation that, hey, every 2 points or every 3 points is still an indicative thing of you getting a better chance of getting into that school. So empirically, based on historical data, that's what we have observed. But again, a lot of it has changed now in the COVID, especially with the universities also not taking GRE scores. But historically, that has been the trend for sure.
You are absolutely. Thanks for putting that away. It slipped my mind, but thank you for saying that. You are right about that as well. You're right.
So I'm just trying to run through the questions. I had seen a question and now I can't see it again, but I'll just ask the question because I'll remember the gist of it. So the question went really around, there have been some studies or some reports which say that, hey, your scores on GRE don't really reflect on your future performance. So in that case, is it really an indicator or stuff like that? I'm not sure if there are reports out there or not, but that was one of the questions that was asked.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Can you please repeat?
So the question was like, some universities are questioning at this point in time, hey, is GRE even a reasonable predictor of your success per se? And if it's not a reasonable predictor, why should we even factor in the admission decision and so on and so forth? And so the question really is, hey, does it really have meaning, or is it a case of the data being insufficient, or what's your kind of opinion on that front?
So, over decades and decades of surveys that we've conducting over the years, most of our surveys indicate that the GRE test is a valuable predictor of the academic success of a student. So if someone's that keen to understand the true, if you're really going to go that deep, there is a lot of surveys that are available on our website, and feel free to explore through those surveys and really take a call on your own. From our side, from the hundreds and thousands and lakhs of students who take the test and the surveys that we've run, it does indicate that it is a valuable predictor of the academic success of a student, at least in the first year of their journey.
Perfect. Yeah, and I have not seen that specific report that was being mentioned by the student, but given that I have been involved in data science or data analytics for my entire career, I can say anytime you read a headline report, try to go figure out where the exact report is and understand what was the sample size. Was it a discussion amongst friends and then it got published as a paper, or was it based on real quantifiable data over multiple vintages? So that is, at times, was it sensationalism or was it actually grounded in data?
Again, very good point, Agit. Thanks for supporting me here. Great points.
So I think I'm getting one question. Joshua is pretty much spamming the group, so I'll just ask that question. It says, what if GRE scores get cancelled after getting I-20 or during the academic course in the USA? Will they tell us to leave the country?
The unfortunate answer is yes.
Yeah.
If it comes to it, then yeah, you may run the risk of losing your admission and even being deported back to your home country.
And that goes back to what you were mentioning earlier on, that, I mean, if you resort to foul means, I mean, that can have a big impact.
Very far-reaching consequences. So you want to be very careful about your next steps. Yes.
All right. Let's see. So again, I'll just quickly summarize all the folks asking, hey, I have X scores, what are my chances of getting an admission? I've scored 320 and so on and so forth. So one is, obviously it will depend on the course you're targeting, because as was mentioned by Tanya, GRE is accepted across multiple programs. So it's not that 320 is the same score or has the same kind of percentile across different kind of programs.
You're right about that. Universities have their own cutoffs in a sense. So if you have 4 or 5 that you want to go into, you may want to just simply check out on their websites where their cutoffs lie, so you know whether or not you are eligible or not. It's as simple as that.
So Shrikar has asked question. I have given my GRE before. The universities I am applying to are asking for unofficial score reports. Can I get the score of my recent test, as I don't wish to share my old score?
The universities want unofficial score reports.
I'm confused. It says, hello ma'am, I've given my GRE before. The unis I'm applying to are asking for unofficial score reports. Can I get the score of my recent test, as I don't wish to share my old score? Yeah, I'm actually confused in terms of
understanding. Sorry, I don't understand it. Unofficial scores are usually...
I'll just copy paste this verbatim in the chat section so that you can have a look at it, and if you can understand the question, that will be great, because I'm having trouble understanding this.
I don't know where do I see it pasted.
So it might be on the right side in your kind of discussion panel. It will be chat section.
Okay, I don't see it yet.
All right, no worries. I mean, we can kind of follow up later on and kind of...
I mean, I can simply say that unofficial scores are available right at this time you submit your tests. At that immediate point, you will know your quant and your verbal scores. Oh, I found it here. I have given my GRE before, but the unis I'm applying for are asking for unofficial score reports. Can I get the score report of my recent test? I'm sorry, there's something up with the English. I'm not able to really make sense of this question. but I'll try my best to answer it, that unofficial scores are available right at the end of the test, on the day you give the test. And it's there on the screen. You can share them. It should be in your profile as well. Your unofficial score reports will be in your profile as well, till your official score reports come to you. And then it automatically goes to the universities where you want your scores to be sent. I hope that answers your question. I don't follow.
Another question is, I've come across few universities which have mentioned GMAT preferred over GRE on their official website. Does it really make a difference for the admission committee?
See, usually universities have no such bias of having one test over another. No university will do that, because the GRE and the GMAT are both equally well-designed assessments, and they cater to the same skills and needs that any university would need. I don't know if there's any university that's categorically mentioning a GMAT preference over a GRE. If it is, then it's up to you. Then by all means, go ahead and take the GMAT test, if that's your preference. There's no hard and fast rule there.
Perfect. All right. I think Jilani, I think there is no. We're not willfully kind of not asking your questions. To be honest, I'm looking at the number of questions you've asked. Quite a few have been asked already on this platform, but I'll take another question from your stuff, which is essentially GRE being a computer adaptive test, are questions of all difficulty levels equally?
Okay, I should have mentioned this in the deck. It was in my deck, but I breezed past it. I'll try my best to explain this. So the GRE test is a section level adaptive test, as opposed to a GMAT test, which is a question level adaptive test. For the sake of this conversation, I will speak about section level adaptive. Basically, what that means is, as I had shown you in the structure of the tests deck, that there is 2 sections in each of the measures. So the verbal reasoning will have 2 sections, the quantitative reasoning will have 2 sections. Now, by saying that it's a section level adaptive test, it means that the computer will decide the difficulty of the second section based on the performance of your first section. So, for example, you have performed moderately well in your first section. In your verbal reasoning, you've done decently well in your first section. So the computer algorithm will decide the level of difficulty for the next section, and that will raise the quality of your results as well. If you've done well, it will lead to a slightly more difficult question, and that's a signal for you that, all right, I'm doing well, my questions are all coming out correct. Similarly, if you've not done so well in this first section, the second section will become slightly of less challenging content for you, and then your graph will start going a level. That's how the sections is designed. So no questions are same for 2 people at any given time. It will depend on the performance of your first section. The second section will be decided. The difficulty of the second section is decided. I hope I was clear.
Okay, yeah. I think Shrikar has kind of rephrased his question. So he said he has given GRE before. The universities he is applying to in Europe are asking for his GRE reports, but they can't receive the test report as they are not available in the list of unis.
Okay. So
it was for the unofficial report.
Is that the scores? So sometimes the university may accept it, but they are not a part of our network, of our institution network. So you may want to check in with them if you can send out the scores through any other means, because usually the scores will come in from ETS, and if they are not a member, then they must write into us and get themselves included in the network, and that's not really your job; it's the university's job to do that.
Okay, Satvik is asked. I'll ask the last couple of questions. So Satvik has asked, is it okay to prepare for GRE after my graduation? Because I think I can't handle both parallelly. Is that considered a gap? So the first thing I'll definitely say from my standpoint is, you need to be prepared when you're taking the test. I mean, there's no point of just rushing through things and then trying to figure out, hey, I've got a bad score, what do I need to do? But over to you, Tanya, for your inputs and for I don't even know if there is something like a gap when it comes to these courses.
You're absolutely right there, Amit. Actually, thank you for answering it straight up. There's no such thing as a gap. You can take the test in your summer holidays, as many students do. If you feel that the pressure becomes too much with your university exams as well as the GRE, by all means, you can take a couple of months off and take the tests when you're for more free now. What I mean to say that you should take it during your academic mindset is if you have a gap between your studies and then you have say a gap of work experience about 2-3 years and then you go back to study the GRE, coming back to the academic mindset can become a little bit of a challenge. So for me, after 15-18 years, if somebody tells me to go back and prepare for the GRE, I know I've forgotten so many concepts and things, right? So that's the basic idea that you do it when your mind is pretty fresh and you're young to do it. That's all it is. There's no such thing as a gap, so to speak. The goal is for you to get a good score. That gets you the admission into the college. Take it whenever you feel the most confident.
All right. So Harshal has asked a question: how does a perfect quant score and not so good verbal score reflect on my application to technical courses? So Harshal, we did discuss this earlier. I think I can tell you, at least from our standpoint, we have this admit predictor tool on our website where we did some empirical analysis of historical data. What we do see is there, again, answer will vary for different universities, but in many universities, verbal score is almost like a pass-fail kind of a thing for simplicity's sake. So you definitely need to hit that bare minimum, and that bare minimum will be different by different universities. But once you get that, then your application for the technical course is not necessarily worsened off or improves significantly whether you get the other 5 points or 10 points thereabouts. Tanya, in case you want to add anything there.
You answered it perfectly well. It's the
cool. With that, I'll ask.
Really.
Yep. With that kind of coming to an end, so I'll ask the last question. Sorry, I was just saying that with that I'll come to the last question today, and it's not, it's half a question, half a request, maybe half a thought. There are multiple points, multiple folks who've been talking about, who've been messaging that hey, GRE test is getting costlier. There is the rupee is declining against the dollar. People are asking, is there any plans to reduce the test fee, or hey, can we get vouchers kind of to help it? Someone has even mentioned about purchasing power parity. So yeah, Tanya, there are certain vouchers here which we talked about. Will depend on the questions, but yes, the question really is around the cost, the rupee depreciation, and so on and so forth.
Well, I hate to burst this bubble, but cost increases is somewhere in the pipeline, and we will be making those announcements as well. But in order to kind of make that saving, we do have a combo offer that's running at this time where a student can register for the TOEFL and GRE together and receive a $48 discount on both the tests, like on the TOEFL tests. So that kind of brings the cost considerably down. If you're looking at admissions abroad, an English proficiency test also becomes a mandate for you. That's one. Second, there are several promotional vouchers that we have already shared with GyanDhan. So you may want to make use of that right away and make use of this little bit of time when the cost of the test is about the same before it increases worldwide. Again.
Perfect. I think we've come to the close of the session. There are still a few questions, but I think in the interest of time, thanks a lot, Tanya, for coming in and sharing your thoughts. Guys, if you have still further questions, you can reach out to us, and our team will try to help you with the answers to the best of our ability, and then we'll also get in touch with the ETS team to ensure that you guys get the right information.
Yes, absolutely, Ankit. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope I hope this session was helpful to any of you. And in case you want any more help or support from us, we're right here and happy to help. Thank you.
Cool. And Harshal will let you know if you are getting the voucher or not. The team will decide that. So as I mentioned at the outset, we'll discuss in terms of the questions, and we'll inform the people who are getting the vouchers. Cool. Thanks a lot, Tanya, and thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.